It's good to be back. We haven't had Kristen here as a guest in a long time. I'm happy to see her. Strangely, she's happy to see me, or at least that's what she's telling everyone. It's been a long time. Um, so we have the chance though to do some live coaching, which we haven't done for a while, um, which is nice. And it's good to have you back. For a lot of people who don't know Kristen, I'm sure it's our regulars coming in because I just sent out the Discord announcement. But for those who don't know you, Kristen, I didn't put a big bio in for you. Um, I probably didn't edit that at all. Let me go do that. It says we have no guest. This is Kristen. She was just chatting with me about how she's glad to be back. And I was saying that we haven't used Zoom in a while, so I had all the settings for a guest turned off. And now I'm fixing the guest announcement while she introduces herself.
Sure. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kristen, and I'm a new manager. I work in healthcare, and I work in the IT department. So, I have two small teams that have a lot of things to figure out. So they're new teams. They're not very mature. It's primarily in testing and automation and in cloud, which is a very, no pun intended, nebulous thing. And I have a lot that I'm learning. So I basically started in January. I got the title in December, but didn't really stop doing my old job until January. So I keep thinking I've been doing this a lot longer than I have. And then somebody will be like, wow, has it been 5 months already? Has it been almost 6 months? And I'm like, it's only been 6 months? Like, God, I really need to slow down on my expectations of myself. But so it's been really fun. We've done a lot, and it has been a wild ride just with you guys now with COVID. It's just been really interesting. It's been an interesting time to be in healthcare. It's been an interesting time to just be around, honestly, but especially in healthcare. So I've been working remote for a couple months now as well, which adds, a whole nother level of complexity and things being different. So that's been interesting. And I don't know what else you want to know about me. I have 2 little kids. If you hear them screaming, it's because they're waking up when they're not supposed to be, and my husband will have to deal with it because I'm hanging out with you guys. And I've got my drink, so
Yes.
I'm official.
So Kristen and I, in a way, have the same drink. She has Westland whiskey, which she gave me a bottle of when she was out here. So I have that same bottle. Only because I tend to slug my drinks, she can sip on it neat. And I got really desperate. I didn't have a nice, pretty glass that was big enough, so I'm double fisting. I have a drink and a backup drink.
What about your water? You got to have that has to be there too.
Oh yeah, I not only have the Twitch glass of water, I also have a friend of mine, and this is completely bizarre. I can't decide. If this is like a real thing or if my friend is selling snake oil, he would be very offended. So I'll get a lecture on the science. He's created this drink along with some doctor called Moonstone that's supposed to help your kidneys, which I don't have kidney problems. But he sent me a bunch of it to see if I liked it. And it's basically lime flavored water. So I have 4 drinks over here. So I am totally, Kyle, I am ready to hydrate. I'm covered. So, Kristen has a ton of topics she wants to cover, but I think, and I'm actually eager to jump into them because my opinion is she listed them in a way that they get more interesting as we go. So, not that the first topic is bad, but the last one is one we have to get to it because you can see me clenching a fist. It's about choosing a mentor. And I have a lot to say about some of the stuff you wrote, and I'm excited.
Okay.
Which
I'm excited.
we might have to get out the rant icon, the rant emote at that point, because I'm feeling a rant. I'm definitely I'm sorry. Chat caught me here. Chat says I drank a 40 of Miller High Life, and boy, do my kidneys feel hydrated. Yeah, there you go. 40s. Not usually my
I can't really picture you like hanging out
with a
next to
40.
the pool with a 40. Yeah, I just don't see that.
Mm.
Maybe. Should I ask Devin? I feel like he might know. If you were ever drinking a 40 at a pool, it'd be with Devin.
So
Let's do it.
Kristen's hit me up with 4 topics. We'll see if we can get through them all. We'll make sure we get to finding a mentor. But your first one was how to most effectively wow, how to most effectively leverage a team assessment like Strength Finder.
Mm-hmm.
You wrote, I'm pulling together a proposal to have one team take Strengths Finder and have a coach facilitator lead the team through the findings as a way to give a common language for the team to better understand themselves,
Mm-hmm.
each other, and the dynamic that comes from our unique blend of personalities. Some folks tend to think these assessments are a waste of time and don't follow up with action. I'd like to hear any
Yeah.
successful experiences you've had or recommendations how to proceed.
Yeah.
Um, So I've done a show with Devin maybe 4 or 5 months ago on the different tests, and we did take
Yeah.
Strengths Finder as one of them. And
Yeah.
I
We
had
learned
never,
neither of you are empathetic. That was the day we talked
yes,
about your lack of empathy for both of
yes,
you.
our my bargain basement, like what? There's like 16, 20 skills or whatever, and like empathy for me was dead last, and him was next to last or something.
Yeah. And it's my number one. So,
Yeah, yeah. We, I had forgotten that. Yes. Um, Well,
yeah. I mean,
that
some
ties
people,
into what you have written later in one of your other
it,
topics,
yes, it does.
so we can
I
come
just,
back to it. Go ahead, though.
I've had a lot of people in larger organizations, especially who don't care for these and don't really want to engage in them. Which this stuff is totally whatever you make of it. I mean, as many things in life are. And so, if you don't want to engage and you don't want to apply it, and you don't want to like do some, self discovery, then or learn about your coworkers, then it's probably not going to be super beneficial. But I was just curious if you've had any good experiences being in some of the larger, you've been at Amazon, you've been there for a while now. So you've probably seen at least one or two of these done, not necessarily Strengths Finder, but just in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
Like,
So my team did DISC a while ago, and all the leaders did it, and they liked it so much. So first, easy success story. The leaders liked it so much. We were all set up to do it for the whole org, and COVID hit, and we
mm,
decided to delay for a bit because people were just trying to figure out how to like exist. Um, but then we did it again, uh, meaning we went and we're now scheduled to have everyone do DISC remotely. It's obviously harder to do a facilitated debrief because
right.
a lot of facilitators and a lot of debriefs are used to using physical space as a way to, show off the results or
Mm-hmm.
telegraph what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I would say, sorry, window problems. I would say go ahead though. Like you can't wait for us all to be back in the office because
Right.
you're still working from home, right? That was one of the
Yeah.
controversies in your situation because obviously the people you support are going into their hospitals, and so I know you had worried about like you being at home and them being at.
Yeah. I mean, the people on my team that would be doing my team are all remote. Both my teams are remote. But yeah, obviously there was questions around how our clinicians would feel and how those patient facing roles would feel. But so far, honestly, I'm really proud of the company that I work for. They have been just very in tune, very attentive, really good at listening to people's needs and being proactive. I mean, even in recent events, our CEO had an email out to his all staff like right away saying, "This is where we are. This is what we value. This is our opinion on this." And so I'm really proud of the company that I work for, and it hasn't been a problem yet that I know of to have some of us working from home. I think it's like I don't know, there's a couple thousand of us that are all working remote and from home with our own devices. So anyway, I that that is going to be a challenge doing it remote, but the team, at least, we have gotten better. I told you, I think before, that I've been using the questions, the Arthur and
Oh
questions.
yeah, that when we used to do question of the week. Yeah.
And so today's question in our team meeting was, what do you value most in friendship? And these this conversation has been awesome. And in fact, a few weeks ago, I actually took the question out of the agenda because we had so much to cover. And somebody was like, hey, are we doing our question of the day? I really like those. So
That's good. That's what you want. You want people
yeah,
who want to
yeah.
do it for sure.
So they've been getting used to it. And I actually had another team member talk to me today about how I've been challenging this team to be more vulnerable and to take more risk and to put themselves out there and try harder, try different things. And they feel like that's been a reason why we're being successful together. So I do feel like the team itself is bonded enough to do something like this virtually and have it be effective. But I don't want it to be like a one-time, we take a test and we find out our results thing. I want it to be something like either actionable or I want it to play a larger role. I don't want it to just be one conversation that we never bring up again.
Yeah. So my experience with that, wow, my keyboard is like unhappy. That's weird. Um, uh, my experience is it gave our team a common language. And I think the fact that we're going to revisit it now that when all the managers do it again with their teams will reinforce that common language. And in our case, somebody asked, is the test like MBTI? It is like MBTI, which is Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It's like DISC, which DISC doesn't stand for anything but DISC. It's an acronym for the different personality types. And there are many other of these tests. Strengths Finder is the simplest, fastest, and cheapest.
Yeah, that's why I did that one, because although we've been bonding and we're getting closer, I think it would be hard to get too deep. I really wanted to do Enneagram, but that requires a lot of research and understanding the other Enneagram types.
Right.
Whereas Strengths Finder is a little bit more self-explanatory when you hear the results.
Cool.
So you don't have to like read up as much to use it.
Right. And I think you're going to have a facilitator, which is great. I think they're gold. I think having them there to give perspective and to explain things. And you also have a pretty small team. Like I had success, even though we probably had 20 managers in the room, 20, 25 people. And so you're not getting the same personal attention. So I think you can have a ton of success, build a language. And for everybody who's wondering, is this all bullshit and why do it? It's basically, look, human interaction is what work is now about. Very few of us just like chop wood alone or dig ditches alone or work totally isolated. And so we've talked on other streams, and we have Awesome here who I'm sure can spout off some stats for us because he's done the research along with others on the value of EQ, and which is emotional intelligence, essentially. Raising that makes such a huge difference for a team. And if you're wondering about all of this, I think the easiest way to explain it to chat and to you, the value and why to go through with it, is everyone knows the stories of the team where no individual is a star, and yet that team as a unit is invincible. Whether you look at the World War II story of the Band of Brothers unit, or different sports teams over time, or different workplace teams. There's a great old book. It'll be considered a history book for most of chat, called The Soul of a New Machine, which was a tech book about the building of a mini computer. A small, tightly knit, so-called gelled team is basically unstoppable compared to individuals. And this is one way to get there, to understand each other's abilities and styles. Because so many mismatches are caused by style. They're caused by people being one person loves data and another person gets bored by it and wants to intuit. one person needs precision and security, another loves risk, and at least knowing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm just agreeing. I think that for me, it's actually been really helpful just in my own growth and development to reflect as I've taken different types of assessments over time to see how they correlate and play together. And when I am experiencing something like at work, I can it helps me frame it. Oh, this person maybe doesn't appreciate the thing that I'm appreciating about this. And that's why we have a different perspective. Oh, I think this person really values, they're an achiever. So what they're looking for and what motivates them might look a little bit different than what motivates me. And so it's been helpful for me without even knowing what their strengths are, but maybe being able to kind of guess and be a little bit intuitive, to be able to compare and contrast how I might perceive things differently.
Yeah, and
Helps with
just
conversation.
realizing it's important to sometimes just realize we all okay. So you've heard me say on stream before, and I'm sure many others have as well. You've heard me say that everyone is the hero of their own movie. Well, part of being the hero of your own narrative or the hero of your own movie is you tend to think everyone's like you,
Mm.
or that if they weren't
Yeah.
if they weren't defective, they'd be like you. Because
Mhm.
clearly, you may have a few faults and I may have a few faults, but basically we're nearly perfect, which means everyone would be nearly like us. And we forget that actually extremely different approaches can be equally or more effective in different circumstances. And in fact, people are wired very differently. So I see the tests as incredibly useful, not only to tell you about the wiring of other people around you, their trends, their ways of looking at things, their worldviews, but also as a constant reminder to you, actually, the people on my team may be very different from me
Yeah.
and yet incredibly skilled.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. I'd be curious. I see 40 Pink Dragons saying that the time that it was helpful is when the conversation kept going. And I would love to hear more about how does that happen? How do you keep that conversation going? Or, what's an example maybe of how that played out? Because that's kind of what I'm most curious about. Because I enjoy this stuff. And I think I know my team enough that I know certain people that will enjoy it more than others. But I haven't really ever experienced this continuing of the conversation, and so I'd
I
like
think you
to.
have to bring it back to your daily meeting or daily work a little bit. You just have to have a prompt where you kind of make it part of the language and you ask people, well, what is that? You have to bring it up as part of the topic sometimes because something like 3 weeks after a training,
Mm.
retention is 10%. What people can tell
Yeah,
you or write down. So if you don't bring it up during those first few weeks, it will
I
all
think
fade.
it actually. What I'm thinking, and maybe I don't know. You tell me. I'm thinking in a lot of my one-to-ones
Uh huh.
when my team is sharing with me like challenges that they're facing with either other team members or people on other teams. Um, and sometimes I'm thinking through and I'm assessing like I know that there's a miscommunication because these people just think and see things so differently. And I'm trying to help teach them how to ask those types of questions so that it's not me just saying, oh, I think this is what they meant, or this is what they might have thought you said. I don't want to have to be the communicator for them. I want them to learn that skill. This I think could be a way to help teach them that just because of that same like language that I could be using so that when they are like thinking through it's like, oh, well, do you remember how they listed really high on responsibility? How could that maybe play out in the situation that you just described? That might be a good way for me to.
Yeah, and I also think I was going to go to the same thing, only I have a bad memory for details in this way. So I wouldn't remember what everyone was. But if someone was describing to me a struggle they were having, say, with someone else, my first question would be remind me what your three strengths were. And
Mm-hmm.
then whatever they listed, I would say, well, which of those do you think you might be leaning on here? Like help
Mm-hmm.
them have self-awareness that whatever strength they have where they're very driven or very precise or very abstract,
Mm-hmm.
whatever their trait may be, how that's guiding their expression. And then you can ask them, do you remember anything about Fred? Maybe he
Yeah.
needs things
I like
differently.
that. That's good.
Because it's the same thing. It's building their awareness of their own approach and the fact that there are different approaches, that other people have other approaches.
Yeah, I know some people, whether I'm on my team or on other teams that work with my team, that are kind of not very self-aware. And so it'll be interesting to see if I see any changes or improvement in, I'm not expecting a miracle, but small changes or improvement in that would be interesting.
And what
So we'll
40 Pink
see.
Dragons just said, I had thought about. If your team has enough trust, print them out and put them on their
Yeah,
desks. That way it's a reminder. And honestly, for a team your size, you might be able to just make a cheat sheet
yeah.
for
Put it
everyone.
in our team's channel.
Yeah, where you know,
Remember, yeah,
because then I can literally look up like, oh, I need to work with Kristen. What are her top three? Or
yeah,
and by the way, for everyone listening, I recommend you take one of these tests. You can get free versions that aren't as good, but
yeah.
you can find free versions of DISC or MBTI, particularly Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. There's a lot of those. And it's worth understanding. I've seen a bunch of people take Myers-Briggs and be like blown away, shocked. Oh my God, this described me really well. And I have had a very few people take it and say, no, this isn't me, and I don't agree. So they don't nail everyone, but most people come away going, wow, this really explained how I act. And there's lots of criticism. You can go see my thread with Devin, my show with Devin. There's criticisms of these tests and how they're non-scientific and blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is, though, most people find they work.
Yeah,
Enneagram is another.
it doesn't, to me, it doesn't even really matter how accurate it is. It's more about the conversation
The
that it brings up.
conversation, getting people talking about
Yeah,
what they, because if someone says, look, I'm actually not empathetic, then you can have that discussion.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah. The Enneagram. So Awesome's asking about the Enneagrams. I don't, maybe if you're not familiar with it, the Enneagram, there's like, oh, how many is there? Nine types or seven types? I can't remember now. Um, and it's similar. It's like a personality type. And there's a whole lot of like research and science that has gone into it, into like when you're a healthy two, this is what you look like. When you're an unhealthy two, this is what you look like. And when you're an unhealthy two, or you're this, you actually also demonstrate the same unhealthy habits of an eight. Like I'm just making up the numbers because I can't
right.
remember which ones are which, but and it's actually been really accurate. My whole family did it. My brother bought it for all of us for Christmas. And then we had like a Zoom call so we could all talk about it. And it was hilarious because anytime someone was like, yeah, but I don't know if this thing is true, or like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've always struggled with this. And it was always sarcastic because we're all like, yeah, that's definitely you. And you definitely struggle with that. So that was really fun to do as a family because like we all know each other's faults. And
That might be
annoying
the
habits.
geekiest thing you've ever said. I'm very proud of you. Like our
And
family got a personality test for Christmas.
yeah,
That
our whole family.
respect. That you just might have gotten more
So
geek cred with me than anything.
yeah, so yeah, it was cool. And I learned a lot about myself actually since doing that test. And it paired so well with some of these other ones I've done. The DISC, I've done the leadership energy assessment, which was really interesting. And Strengths Finder. I feel like maybe there's another one, but yeah, I learned so much about my empathetic part of myself and how that ties in with my Enneagram. I'm a two. I'm the helper, and I've just learned like the rest of the world doesn't actually feel the burden of other people's emotions and well-being the same way that I do. And so like when
That's
something
right.
happens to
We don't give a
someone,
shit. You're
yeah,
totally right.
dude, it is crazy. I was talking with someone and they were like describing how they experience things like, the death of a loved one or something. And I was like, well, even when it's not my family or someone I'm close to, it's like really hard for me to not carry that burden as my own. Like my brain is automatically imagining what it feels like to have that grief, to wake up in the morning. Like it's it's sick, man. It's really bad. And I didn't ever realize how unhealthy it is. And it's just like for your mental health, it's just so crucial that you learn some of this stuff about yourself because I just didn't realize I was carrying so much of other people's burdens that aren't mine.
Yeah, borrowing trouble, right? Like
Yeah.
don't borrow other people's trouble if you
I'm a
can avoid.
pro. I'm a pro
Yeah,
at it. Never need to
big
borrow trouble.
big shoulders. So bottom line, just so we can move on, I think this is great. Do it with your team. Bring it up. Put it in your chat. I think is awesome to keep it current, get people discussing it. But mostly for everyone here in chat, I would recommend take some of these tests because if you want to succeed in your career, which is why you watch this channel, that's what we do here. Knowing yourself is incredibly valuable. A few shows ago, I talked about something called the Johari window, which I don't have time to revisit here, but it's about what you know about yourself. And the most dangerous things are where you don't understand your own traits and how they land on others. So go get educated.
Yeah.
And, totally, it will make you, you don't have to change who you are necessarily if you know who you are. But the dangerous thing is to be pissing people off or frustrating others and you don't even have an idea why. So at least, like I'm happy to piss some people off. But at least the thing I always hated was when I pissed people off unintentionally. Like if I've got my dander up and I want to rant and you get mad and I'm like, that's okay, we're going to fight about this. I can live with that. But when you're like, man, you're such a dick. And I'm like, wait, whoa, what? That's not okay with me, right? I want to be in charge of who doesn't like me as opposed to just incidental. In other words, I want to keep my enemies in the front and know who they are. So I'm being super honest with chat, just giving you like real practical advice. This is how at least you can know you won't make accidental enemies.
I like that Dr. Miller says like 80% of your audience is probably an achiever in the top five.
That's probably
Which would
true.
it would be really interesting though to see
The
the
strengths
top
finder, this
five,
audience.
yeah, of this audience. Like everyone should do it, and then we should go in Discord, and everyone should have to like post up their top, couple. I don't know, five's kind of a lot for that big of a group, but that would be pretty cool. I'm not an achiever. It's not in my top five, which is very surprising to me. Don't know, it's not there.
It'd be fun though.
Fun.
We could share any of the, we could have a channel to talk about these tests or do it sometime. It would be fun because all the tests. We need like a matrix. Awesome earlier was compare like cross correlating like a 3 an Enneagram is this type of MBTI.
So that'd be cool.
Let's talk
Someone
about
else here could do that.
Yeah, let's talk about your second thing here, which you total topic change, everybody. So get ready, flush the cache of everything you just heard.
This is how my brain works.
New show. We're going to talk about something, honestly, that I had to do a little research to brush up on, which is shift left as a testing and development methodology. So for those of you who aren't geeks, we won't stick in geek land for too long. But why don't, Kristen, you explain briefly what shift left is in your view? Because we're not talking about moving from being a Biden supporter to a Sanders supporter. It's got a different meaning in this context.
Yeah. So I'm asking you about shift left because I want to know what you've seen and what you've experienced. So shift left is essentially this idea that the further left in the life cycle, the software development life cycle, that you can get testing started, the earlier you'll detect any defects or issues, which will save you time and money in the long run and heartache. Because once an issue gets out to production, that sucks, right? Then you have to remedy and you have a bunch of people that are pissed off. So that's the idea of it. And it looks, I think there's a bunch of different ways you can like kind of slowly get into that space. And there's pushback from some people and there's other methodologies, I think, that go along with it too. So that could be why there's certain pushback, like test-driven development.
Yep.
That's a huge one. And that's something that I'm kind of where I'm wanting to go with my team would likely require we move more into the test-driven development, TDD space, but I don't know that my partner in crime, the manager over the dev team, is on board with that, or if the devs are.
Yeah. And so the first thing you ask about this idea is not at all new. This is a new name for it. And for those of you who
Yeah.
know anything about software development, and by the way, I would recommend, whether you ever want to be in software or not, the future of the world is technological. So knowing a tiny bit about how software is built, try to pay attention, just because you'll explain why it's so expensive and so hard and why stuff sucks so much, and why everything you'll ever get for the rest of your life will be full of bugs, sadly. Uh, so I don't mean to be depressive, but I switched views real quick to put up a model of it. And basically, shift left is saying try to get testing into the requirements design and development phase. There's this old idea called a waterfall model, which was very slow. And
It's more like a project plan.
yeah, and this is a better view of it. This one I've put up, it's two shades of blue. If you think about how basically, even though we do agile development now and we try and do iterations, something starts with a plan or an idea and it ends up like shipped, where it says deploy and release and then monetize. In the old models, you did all the testing at the end, and in the new shift left model, which isn't that new, you try and do it on the early side. A different way to understand this, and I'll switch back to Kristen. What I've heard about this, you ask what I've heard about it. It's been known for a long time that another piece of the cost of a defect, another piece of quality, is the earlier you catch a defect, the less it costs. It's like a classic example. I don't know those of you who might have heard about it or not, but maybe 5 years ago, VW got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, where they had shipped a bunch of cars that had really poor emissions, and they fudged the emissions test because it was going to cost them a fortune to fix all these cars. And I may be getting this scandal slightly wrong, but essentially they put out a bunch of cars with bad emissions and with emissions problems. And like fixing, if you think about the difference between catching a flaw when the car is still on the drawing board versus catching the same flaw when it's rolling down the assembly line, versus catching the flaw when it's been shipping for 3 years and you have to recall millions of cars in the field.
Yeah.
If you fix it on the drawing board, the cost is like, I don't know, dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. If you fix it on the assembly line, it's probably hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. But to go fix a fleet of cars in the field with a recall is like billions or hundreds of millions. And the same is true of every type of software. They're talking about Enron. And of course, a bunch of people, we have a lot of software folks, they're talking about the value of Agile.
Yeah, we're an agile team, and Scrum. My automation team is doing Scrumban right now, just because we aren't in sprint automating at this point, which is another one of those things that I want us to do. But in order to do that, it seems like we might need to move more in this TDD direction.
But for everybody, with test-driven development, just to make it clear, you can have a test-driven life. If you think about the cost of fixing a mistake, if you go to write an email and you catch that I've addressed an email to Kristen and called her Christy, if I catch it before I hit send by doing my own review, it costs me editing and changing an I to an N, and all's good. If I hit send and then I figure it out later, or she writes me back and says, by the way, it's Kristen, now my cost of fixing it has gone up enormously because I have to take the egg off my face. And, and this is a trivial example, but the point is this idea applies everywhere. And when I was in quality, this was an idea as well 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago. And the idea back then was that you wanted to try and catch the defect as close to when it was introduced as possible. So the reason to bring testing up really early was the longer the defect exists, the more expensive it gets. Because if it's in the design and it gets written into the software, then it takes more cost to change and so on. So there's a cost argument. Bottom line, I've heard a lot, it's the challenge here is developers, and I know we have a lot of developers in chat and they can sound off about it. We're famously cocky and believe that we're not going to make a lot of mistakes. We all think, again, we're all the heroes of our own movies, like I've said a few times. And we have David here, Awesome Dave plus David in chat. He can talk about this because he's leading a big dev team right now. We all think that we're going to do it better than everyone else, despite all previous evidence. And investing a lot of our precious time when we could be writing new software, instead writing tests, we get arrogant and say, oh, I know I made 734 bugs in the last release, but this time's going to be better. And by the way, there's the date, and I don't have time for that. So when you talked about getting people on board, it's really about getting them to believe it will be faster and cheaper. And I think getting them to try it with you once. Like, can we try it for one project and measure it?
Yeah.
But what's the rest of your question about it? Like, how to shift, if to shift?
I mean, I was just curious what you've seen, if you've seen it work, if you've seen it be helpful, or if the places you have seen it done, it didn't have the success that it was supposed to. It's just, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this conversation that I'm not going to bring up right now, but essentially I'm tasked with driving this vision for the test team. And my boss keeps referring to the rest of the organization of us being the center of excellence for testing. And I'm like, okay, we have a lot of stuff that we're trying to figure out. So
you're going to need to educate your boss, right? In other words, the first thing, and I'm sure Awesome Dave will back me up on this, testing can never make software good. It can tell you if the software was good in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's why it got renamed quality assurance, because testing actually implies that it's testing's job to find the bugs and make them get fixed. And in reality, it's software engineering's job, it's developers' job to write really good software.
Yeah.
And then the QA department is there to prove that got done, to run the test suite and show that our rate of defects is indicative of a low rate of problems in the field. Mm-hmm. You cannot, or it's extremely expensive to test quality into software. And again, everybody in chat, there's so many analogies to this. If you have a crappy car, like taking it to the repair shop won't actually uncrappy the car. It might make it run a little better. If you're a crappy cook, okay, like having a bunch of people sample your dish and tell you to add salt after it's on the table won't make the dinner good. And software is the same way. If it's not built right, you can slap Band-Aids and more Band-Aids on it. But really, the value
and then it blows up later.
Yeah, the value of test-driven development is trying to help the developers build it well in the first place.
Well, I think therein lies some of the challenges. It's more of a culture shift for our developers because they don't want to own that. And what we're doing is we're trying to say we all have equal ownership and need to own our own pieces of it. We are not, the reason why things work well. We are here to catch it before it happens, if possible. And it's an interesting conversation because even around automation, it's like they have this misconception that as we automate more, we won't need our manual testers. I'm like, actually, as we automate more, one, we have to maintain all of that. Two, my manual testers are going to be doing different types of testing and elevating the quality. That's what's going to happen. They're going to be partnering differently with our developers. They're going, and it's just really hard to explain that to like a product team, which is crazy, right? Because I come from product. I was a product owner before I became a manager. So it's an interesting conversation, and to have my own engineering team struggle with this, but this is like, that's the mentality my boss wants. And he has hired me to help make that change in my culture of my company.
Yeah, so you have a big task cut out for you, and you saw me smiling because this argument, Dave and I both, the first place where Dave and I worked together, we went to college together, but then the first place we worked together was part of a QA organization in our first jobs outside of college, our first post-college jobs. Dave was famously a paper boy long before college. But we all thought we were going to automate testing away back then. And it's one of those things that, like, manual testing is doomed, and anybody who's in manual testing, your career is over. You better figure out something else, and it's all going to get automated. And, 25 years later, there's as many or more manual testers than ever. And, we sometimes have people here from India. They can talk about how there's whole offshore companies that are just giant test houses. Yeah. Because if I go back to this early shift left graph I had up real quick, and I go, to the other model, which is like, what if you don't shift left? What if you shift the other way? I don't have a good picture of it. But basically, people just, it's never changed. It's never changed. So, the idea that your manual testers are all going to go away, you'll be the first person to achieve that. So if you do, God bless you, send me a note.
Not the plan.
Yeah. And I mean, it should be the plan to keep pressure on it, but it won't get there.
I mean, what I'm actually doing, Ethan, is this leads us into the next, does this lead us into the next chat? I can't remember now. What
the next topic was leadership. You as a leader.
So what I'm doing as part of my attempt to start shifting the culture is changing the titles and the org structure of my own team a little bit. And hopefully this is going to follow suit with other parts of engineering. So what I'm doing is I'm leveling the playing field a little bit for my manual testers and my automation engineers, requiring a little bit more of my manual testers to learn more about automation and be closer to that. And then the goal is, as we grow, to hire in young people like right out of college who don't have any experience. And everyone will start as a manual tester. They'll learn a product, they'll get acquainted with our work, and then they get to pick a path. And they'll either start then training and working and getting more under either automation, development and engineering, or DevOps. And then under that, they'll start to grow. And I'm crafting these job descriptions to allow a little bit more room and flexibility for people to be promoted and to grow under each one versus having to wait for headcount to show up for them, because that's been one of the biggest barriers that I've found in how you promote people and get younger, newer, not necessarily younger, but newer people in. So that's kind of one of my grand schemes is to leverage, like, manual testing isn't going away, but it's going to kind of be a good entry point. It's a great entry point for a lot of people who are trying to get into engineering.
It is. There's a problem with this, though. Beware. You're setting a trap for yourself.
What is it?
What you're teaching people is that testing is not that valuable because the goal is to move on from it. That the really good, I'm just telling you, you may not feel that, but
the manual testing, because one of the paths is going to be in the testing space. So like, I have a manual tester who's never going to be an automation engineer. She doesn't have a desire for that. And she is a badass manual tester. I want her to kind of lead and train that discipline.
Just understand.
So it's not really going away.
I understand. Look at it from the flip side. I'm the dev manager. And what I'm doing is I'm coming to your team where you have these people on these different paths and cherry picking some set of people in the perception and saying, oh, you're pretty good at this. You've learned some software tools. You can now be a developer. Come over here and build product. And so I've just seen this movie, and Dave will back me up. He's seen this movie where there's nothing wrong with having a promotion path from testing, a career path from testing to dev. But there's no path that goes from dev to testing. And the point is, the world, here's the fact, whether you like it or not, the world communicates that developers are college educated, brilliant people with skills who create value, and testers are offshore labor. And you're caught in the middle of that, trying to have a different culture with those labels and roles. And so I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I try to avoid that. I'm not saying you can't manage around it. I'm telling you there is a perception trap where if you're using it as a career path feeder, it can be perceived as this is something I try to get out of as soon as I can.
Yeah. That's a good call out. I mean, I am planning on having so the roles, the titles that I'm using aren't like manual tester. I'm using software test engineer for all of my team, and so it's going to be like an analyst 1 or an analyst 2, a specialist. So you can become a specialist, which is a promotion, and be a specialist within the manual testing discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm trying to keep it so that it's still relevant for those who want to pursue that.
Totally.
But I see what you're saying, and
if you become seen as just, you just want to avoid the word just is always dangerous. And if you become seen as just a career path into development, you'll end up with people joining your team who don't really want to do the work you need them to. They want to quickly get, and what you'll have, it'll work like this. See, the development team will need to hire somebody, and what they'll do is they'll find someone who's not good enough for their bar for whatever they think it should be right now. And they'll say, oh, but you know what? You can go to Kristen's team and be there for 6 months and then come back.
You know what's funny though? I have the top developer in our entire engineering department moved to my team a few months ago from being a developer. He's a dev too. Because he was so bored, because that's how good he is. He was bored being an Android developer. And he wanted a little more of a challenge. And he's been like doing some insane stuff, solving really complex problems on our automation team, and cleaning up like the infrastructure. And it's been really cool. So he's going to probably migrate more into like the DevOps and architecture space. That's what I think I'm going to try to help him get into. But he moved, the best person moved onto my team, and the dev manager he always calls me out on it because he doesn't want him to leave either, but he's like, you stole my best developer, and then I had to give up another person to you for your cloud team, and he blames me for all of his headcount issues.
Good.
But yeah, so I don't know if that means anything, but I have another developer who's pretty good who also is interested in coming over to my team. And I was like, I don't know that you can do that right now because your manager would get mad at me, I think, if I took another dev from him. But
that's fantastic. If you have migration both ways, and I certainly had some very interesting developers come to work on my team because they discovered the joy of creative destruction. They discovered the joy of wreaking havoc with software, and it was fun. But that's a minority. So I gave you my cautions.
No, I appreciate that.
Let's talk about this third topic you have here, which is you said being strong as a young woman leader.
Yeah.
And I'll read out what you wrote. And I wonder how much of this, some of it has to do with being a woman. Some of it has to do maybe with just being strong as a leader. And I think that's of interest to everyone. And then we can talk about the female part. I'm also glad 40 Pink Dragons is here. I haven't seen T Weirdo yet. I wish she was here as well. And then there was Bees somebody. I've forgotten your name. I'm sorry. But we have some female leaders here who may be able to help. Anyway. My boss said part of why he hired me is for my strength. I've acknowledged recently that I don't have to be liked to be impactful. Damn straight. I refuse to sacrifice my values of what I believe in to gain approval. Good. Dangerous, but good. I'm for you so far. Which means I have to learn to be okay with people not agreeing with me, liking my decisions or approach, or plain not liking me. Maybe. It depends on how you do it. Remember, occasionally that will be true, but if you have high EQ, people can respect you even though they disagree with you. And so part of this is the difference between being liked and respected. And then some people confuse that, right? They confuse respected with feared. I
Yeah.
would personally say that Il Duce, who runs our country right now, confuses those two. He confuses respected and feared. Um, and yes, I did go political on that chat. I guess deal with it because
Let's give a little views command here.
yeah.
There you go. Got you covered.
I'm a little bit bent.
Reporting.
Well, I'm a little bit bent about some of the imperial, well, again, the confusion between being respected and feared. It's if you want to be respected, you earn it. Feared is different.
Yeah.
Anyway, some people see my kindness and I feel as though they view it as a handicap, that I would not know how to be assertive. They learn pretty quick. Have you seen examples of this blend of treating people like people while still earning respect of your colleagues for more than compassion? Someone you want to listen to when speaking, and how would this look different for a woman than for a man? Okay, that last part is a phenomenal question, and I wish I could introduce you to this woman I worked with for many years at Amazon. Her name was Robin Mendelsohn. She recently retired or left after like 15 years. She had this trick that the madder she got, the softer she spoke. And she was not a big woman, very small stature. But people came to know that if Robin got really quiet, you better watch.
I'm right.
I'm
writing this down, man. This is the opposite of what's natural for me.
The natural thing is if you get into an argument is, and that's the guy thing and the macho thing is, oh, yeah. And, of course, I'm super loud, so I can be louder than anybody in the room. If you've never heard me, like, Dave's been with me and some of the other people here, like when I'm cheering at a sports match, I have actually had refs turn and look at me because I'm so loud.
I believe it. You're tall and you're loud. You're like, I don't know, the sirens that go off when you're testing, like the tornado sirens.
Yeah, no, I have a foghorn when I'm and 40 Pink Dragons is right. Silence is powerful as a leader. As a woman, I have seen women honestly just staring at someone and blinking, like the did that just really come out of your mouth? And silence is incredibly uncomfortable. And you like to talk, I like to talk. It's one of our similarities. We're both talkers. Learning the power of uncomfortable silence, deadly.
Yeah.
And
I mean, do you remember that when I first started coaching with you, you had tasked me with kind of coming up with a homework assignment for myself. And the assignment we chose was for me to track and get some, because I wanted to get more data focused, which by the way, I have become so much more like I am so proud of myself, because when people are asking me questions or sharing things, I'm always looking for the data first, which has never been like my primary, go-to. Anyway, so one of the things I had tracked was how often do I feel the urge to speak up? And then second guessing, am I going to add value to this conversation when I speak up or not? And like holding my tongue. And kind of just assessing my motivation for speaking up, and so that it actually is truly adding value and not for some other reason, such as I want them to think I know more, or I want to look good, or I want to feel important, or whatever. So that was something I started back then. And I do think that after doing that for, how many weeks did I do that for? I mean, I know I did it for at least a month. I think it was longer than that, maybe 6 weeks. Some of it stuck, but maybe I should pull that back out now that I'm in a different position, because that was as an individual contributor, not as a manager.
Yeah, I had forgotten that, but it's a good exercise. And I'm glad you did it so diligently. I also mad props for becoming at least aware of the value of the data. Get to the facts, not the opinions. At least see the facts, or see what we know and what we don't know, before you go purely to opinion and discussion. But going to your question, as a boss, you don't have to be, as a leader, any type of leader, your goal should be respect not fear, and not being liked. Because if you're shooting for being liked, you're like the weak parent who's trying to be
Yeah.
their kid's friend. And
Right.
if you're trying to be obeyed, you're the tyrannical parent who's threatening and maybe violent. The middle is what we all shoot for, and leadership is part parenting, right? Parenting is part leadership. You're seeking where you just stick to your guns. And so you're very familiar, the better parents, I think, and 40 Pink Dragons does this better than I do. Um, when someone's nagging them or cajoling them as a kid, they listen and say, you still need to clean your room. Yep, we can talk
Yeah.
about that after you clean your room. Well, and they can just be a broken record on it, and they don't get angry, and they don't like, God, go clean your room right now, or I'll ring your. And
Yeah.
I let people get under my skin, and that isn't as useful. So I think where you say people see your kindness as though it's a handicap, yes, just like people confuse respect and fear, they very much confuse kindness and weakness. Because being compassionate or being caring or, frankly, being female are all associated with being a pushover.
Yeah. Oh, and then add to that that empathy is my number one strength, and that I'm a type 2 Enneagram. That's a helper. Like, those things are innate in my personality.
Yep.
But so what I'm finding is that after people see me in any situation where I do have a conflict, or there's, I have to make a decision, it's like sometimes they're kind of surprised the first time they observe that. Like, they're like surprised. They're like, oh, you are a manager, or like, you are a leader. Like, they just, like, they're just so used to me. And it's funny because they think I'm like so calm and chill all the time. And I'm like, dude, you need to talk to my husband, because I don't think that those words describe me at all. But in like work and in, all these, like, I am pretty calm. So I don't feel like I need to assert myself all the time to try to like show that I can be strong. But it just kind of sucks when I feel like some people who haven't had a chance to see me in action maybe don't have that initial respect for me the way that they would if I were someone else, maybe. Like
Yeah.
the just immediate, first impression or something.
Well, so the way to build that impression, humans are really quick to read a room. And you're right. When someone meets you completely cold alone the first time, if they have no context, they're going to judge you on appearance and superficial traits. And in your case, that's going to include gender. In everybody's case, it includes gender. But most of the time, you're not totally alone. And what will make a huge difference is if you've cultivated respect with your team, and if they know that there's a core of iron under all the kindness, there's a core of decisiveness, a core of commitment. What happens is the person comes in the room, and when you speak softly, if all of your team and all the people, and by team in this case, I don't just mean your reports, I mean the people you work with, if they all go silent and listen to you, or like you talk about how your boss is grooming you for something bigger, if your boss is listening to you, the other people in the room will pick up on that really quickly. The human animal, right? We're all basically pack animals or tribal. We're very good at reading signals, even if we don't realize we're doing it, of who's the alpha in the room. And I'm not saying you need to be the alpha in the traditional, like, we're all wolves and I can take you down with my teeth. But that inferred respect gets noticed. And if you think about the great female politicians, none of them was known for their fiery rhetoric. Whether you can pick different leaders on either side of our American party lines or internationally. But if you want to look at Madeleine Albright, Condoleezza Rice, Hillary Clinton, Condoleezza Rice, I picked someone purposely on the right, just because women can be strong leaders regardless of their perspectives. Margaret Thatcher,
Mm-hmm.
Angela Merkel. None of these people are known for shouting rhetoric, as far as I know. They may have been rhetorical, but none of them were like giving these fiery, fist pounding type speeches usually. And yet they were viewed as incredibly strong and highly respected. Even and even if we look at modern politics, Nancy Pelosi, she has plenty of enemies and people don't like her. But she gets respect in the sense that everyone listens to her and knows that even if they hate her, which many people do, they know they can't avoid where she's going to stand. Like they have to factor in, okay, what's Pelosi going to want or what's her perspective? So that and none of these people are shouters because it doesn't work culturally or volume wise. I can shout you down. If we just get in a room, I can out volume you because I'm bigger.
Yeah.
So getting into a shouting match with me is a sucker's bet. That's why you get into the whispering match. That's why this woman, Robin, I mentioned, was so clever, because she realized, and it was so unexpected. It also threw people, because she wasn't a loud talking person in the first place. But when her voice dropped, people were like, they knew they were in a conflict, and they're like, why is she whispering? And it would just get lower and lower. And it was just, I don't know, it was just really neat way to call attention. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. That might be a little harder to do virtually, but because I was in a meeting yesterday and I had a hard time. I wasn't trying to be disruptive. And I was really trying to listen in more than anything, but I was going to try to answer a question and I couldn't seem to get in, and I didn't really want to yell. So I just didn't. I just waited. And eventually, I figured, if it's important enough, I can always follow up with an email or something. But yeah, that's an interesting, I wonder how that looks virtually.
Your video just froze, but it came unfrozen. Yeah, some people raise their hand. That's like another
Yeah.
trick or a signal. No, you got me back?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it glitched,
Yeah,
it
I've done
glitched for a
that.
second. I'm not sure. It glitched somewhere here, maybe in my house. Anyway, I guess to close this topic, what I would say is the analysis I would go do is when and how do you switch modes and how do you signal that? In other words, you normally start with being empathetic and helpful. But your boss, as you say, did hire you to be strong. And so I would think about, how do you signal that? How do you signal strength? Because empathy and kindness, okay, we were talking about strong female leaders. Let's talk about Mother Teresa. She clearly would have been thought of as one of the most empathetic people, whether she was or not. This person who's dedicated her life to trying to save the poor in Calcutta, and yet incredibly strong. And so whether or not you think she's a perfect example, the point is these two traits can be blended, where you're seen as an angel of mercy, someone who will end up being, if she hasn't yet, being a saint in the Catholic canon. But being a woman and a leader and dealing with these really hard topics and being super effective. And she was known as being an incredibly hard taskmaster with very little time for complaining or weakness, and yet super empathetic. And so you can be, I think there's plenty of examples of people who can be kind, gentle, and strong. It's a matter of choosing very carefully when to switch modes and how to be both at once.
And I think I am learning that. I mean, in our team meeting today, I was talking about how over this month I want us to be reflecting on what we've accomplished in this past fiscal year and what our goals are going to be for the next. And I was working with the team to figure out how they wanted to collaborate on this, because I told them I'm not going to come up with all these goals for you. I want it to be derived from the team. And in that conversation, at a certain point, I just said, I'm expecting all of you to participate in coming up with these ideas of what we want to accomplish and how. And if you don't have the desire to participate in that, you're probably on the wrong team. And that's okay. But I'm letting you know now, this is what my expectation is.
Yeah. That's
So,
good.
and
Clear.
it followed a very empathetic and kind, like, you know, we were having these questions and I'm like, they know that I care about them, but that's kind of how my approach is. I didn't have to be loud. I didn't have to be like yelling. Like I just know some of them might intend to do it and then not do it. And I'm just letting them know, like, this is what I'm expecting of you.
And I think you hit on the key. Care about them as a person. Expect work performance like a boss.
Yeah.
So I care about you, your career, your family, your children, your parents, your spouse. I care about it as a human. As a boss, I need these things. And by the way, those are law.
Yeah.
And
so let me tell you how to succeed. And if you're not doing it, we're going to talk about it. And they were saying the thing they value most in friendship after that question was honesty. And I was like, you guys know that your reviews are coming up like this month, right? And they were like laughing. They're like, oh, are you threatening us? It's like, no, there's nothing that I would ever say in a review that you haven't already heard me say.
Good.
Like, I'm never going to do that to you. You're always going to hear it from me before then. So yeah, trying to have those conversations along the way.
Yeah, I think we came to the right conclusion, so we can go to your last topic. But I would think a lot about how to separate your empathy, which is about the human, from your strength and when necessary, sternness, or whatever word you would use, directness, which is about the performance standards. Mm-hmm. You know, and I can love you as a person, but I still need this from you as a performer. And that's just the way it is, because the company is here. I'm here for the company to take care of you as a valued contributor, but also to achieve goals. And those are two sides we can have together, and it can be fun, but neither is optional. Being a human as a part of our team is not optional, and performing is not optional. So
Yeah.
Cool. So your last question was the one I was fired up about, and you want to find a mentor, and you've asked a really good question. I've talked about finding mentors before, maybe not with you, but on my stream. But let me just read what you wrote. I thought this was difficult before working remotely. It's all the more challenging now to meet people and connect in a genuine way. There's less opportunity for this to just happen. My boss, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, so VP and CTO, wants me to find another mentor in the organization. He has recommended other VPs, but as a manager, not a director, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to try and weasel my way into that. My boss has been talking a lot about the future and how much bigger my role will be 3 years or so down the road. I think that's why he's suggesting I find someone higher level as a mentor. Tips for how to do this remotely. So this is where I go all ranty. I'm going to stand up for it because it's rant time. And this is a rant for other people as well. Women, and Kristen may or may not be doing this, but it's quite possible. Women tend to feel unworthy of the opportunities in front of them, or feel that they are not qualified, they're underqualified. Where I want to rant here is your boss is telling you that he wants you to have a VP mentor. Yeah. He's trying to invest in you and set you up with an executive, and you're seeing it as weaseling your way in.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know these people. What am I going to say? Like, oh, like my boss wants me to
absolutely
have you invest in my life. Like,
no. But
that's
you do
what I feel.
Well, okay, we have to talk about your feelings, which I'm not that good about. But let me. Therefore, I'm going to avoid the topic for a second, but I will come back to it. The rant part is, I would send them an email that says, "Dear Alice, dear Mac, I'm looking for a mentor who can help me with blah, blah, blah. my boss, insert name, recommended you as a great person for that. I would absolutely drop his name like a bomb and let them know in that way that he recommended you reach out to them. Because I can tell you, as someone who gets mentorship all the time, requests all the time, if you come to me and say, hey, Ethan, can you mentor me, blah, 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 I have one reaction, which is mainly I'm too busy to go see my YouTube show. But if a peer of mine, if I get a note that says, hey, my boss so-and-so said you'd be right to help mentor me for this, and he recommended I reach out to you. At a minimum, what I'm going to do, let's play chess. What am I going to do? You tell me, what am I going to do?
You're probably going to ask your peer about me.
Yep.
And why you want them to help.
Yep. And then it's up to your boss to sell it, because he's made the recommendation. So he's already on the hook mentally, because he can't say like, oh, I was just kidding. I sent Kristen over there. She asked me for a bunch of names and I threw yours out to get her out of my office. Like, even if that's actually what he did, or what, and I know that's not true, but even if that's what he did, he's going to have to sell it at that point.
Yeah. Well, this isn't the first time he's mentioned it to me. It just got harder with COVID.
Then stop being thick.
I know. I just,
tell me why you feel bad.
Well,
tell us all why you feel bad.
I feel like I'm brand new to this. And I feel like there's directors who would crave to have that sort of opportunity.
Damn straight.
And I don't have a director. My boss is the only VP who doesn't have a director. He's holding that spot for someone at some point.
Yes.
And so I guess I just feel,
this is opportunity.
But I know, but I'm like, dude, I struggle pacing myself. This isn't fair. It's like holding the carrot in front of a horse.
Okay.
Where he's constantly giving me hints, but he refuses to say things directly. And he actually said to me one time, I know you're smart enough to read between the lines of what I'm trying to tell you. Like, but I'm freaking brand new, Ethan. And like, these other VPs don't know me. And they barely even have heard my name because I'm so brand new to management.
Yeah. Well, okay. You have a choice here. And you said, what was the trait you said? Ambition or accomplishment or whatever isn't one of your strengths finder things? Achiever. The achievers in the audience are going crazy right now, thinking like, Jesus Christ, your boss is trying to tell you he'd like to make you a director, and he's trying to get you the mentorship to get there. And you're sitting back saying, oh, I'm not worthy, which is human. But there's so much. So you have a choice, which is to go outside. This is a comfort zone thing. And it's legit. It's a comfort zone thing, though. Can you go outside your comfort zone and tolerate what seems like unfair or unusual or inappropriate investment in you as a new manager, as opposed to other directors who would fall over themselves for this? Can you be like? Yeah. Why aren't you allowed to be lucky?
I think it's imposter syndrome, because I do feel like an imposter because I'm in the tech healthcare industry that I've never worked for or desired to work for. It's not like I had this huge passion or like this major calling in my life to do this. It just kind of worked out because I'm a hard worker and my work ethic got me in because somebody worked with me in the past and brought me into the company. But I do feel like my boss asked me, I just want you to think about it. Like, what would that look like for you to be like managing managers? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, well, honestly, the biggest thing that concerns me is like the administrative stuff, because I just don't care about it. And it's hard for me to focus on it. And no one has taught me it. No one has ever said, this is what you have to do administratively as a manager. that got missed. I don't know. There's some sort of onboarding I was supposed to go to, and I never got scheduled for it. And then COVID happened, and they haven't started them up. So I have never had any sort of list. I have no checklist of like when things are due or what to do. Like I just have to figure it out. And he laughed and he was like, that's what Cindy's for, like his administrative assistant. I was like, dude, I don't have an administrative assistant. Like if I drop the ball, like I'm the one that has to pick up the pieces. But he just kind of laughed at me. He's like, you're not alone. You're gonna be supported in this journey. Like I'm here for you all the way. You have other people that are gonna be there for that stuff. Like any mistake you make, I'll own. I have a really great boss.
Yeah, it sounds like you do. And so it's good you brought up imposter syndrome. It happens to all of us, right? For those of you who don't know, most of you know, imposter syndrome is this idea that if only people knew the real me, they'd realize that I'm not qualified for this job or this life or this whatever. And they'd be like, how in the hell did you sneak in here? What a joke.
Yeah. I do feel like that. Like, I don't know. Like anything I know is just learning on the job. I knew nothing of quality assurance other than that I had to test a bunch of websites in my past life, like on if things worked or not. I didn't really know a lot about product. I didn't know Agile. I'd never done that before. I didn't know what automation was. I still don't know a whole lot about cloud, but I'm leading the cloud team and figuring it out as we go. And so I feel like an imposter pretty much everywhere I go already. Like I already am learning so much.
So I'm not a psychologist. I can't help you fully with imposter syndrome. What I can do is as a coach, I can help you with the idea first. Your boss sees things in you that he wants to invest in. So you have to trust that judgment. And I don't think you're very transparent on this channel. For those of you who don't know, a year ago when Kristen asked to be coached on screen, she sent me a video and she said, look, I can't guarantee you anything about coaching me except I'm willing to be very vulnerable and to do it on live video in order to get the benefit of your coaching. And it's been a great coaching relationship, and I really enjoy showcasing what good coaching, at least my opinion of good coaching, but what a coaching relationship looks like. And Kristen has made that easy because she's never afraid to talk about herself and her fears. So in this case, I'm sure you've been transparent with your boss about your fears. He still wants to invest in you. He's trying to get you a mentor. I think it's totally fair to say, look, what I need a mentor in is confidence. Like, in other words, you can ask some of the VPs he's recommending to you. One of the things I need help with is I'm moving very fast in my career and I feel out of my depth and I feel, I'm not purely a fake it until I make it person. Like that isn't who I am. So who can help me with that? For example, ask him a question. You've heard this from me before probably, but for others in chat, this is important. If you're looking for a mentor, you don't just ask, can you be my mentor? You ask for a mentor in a certain thing. And so you would ask your boss and say, of these VPs you want me to go meet, I'd love to get a mentor. Which of them has come up quickly like I am? Who can help me with the speed of the learning curve and the always feeling out of your depth because it's always a new challenge that you haven't had time to master. And then you get that person who can help you, because I went through this, right? I moved into management very quickly. I was managing people within a year or two of coming out of college, much earlier than most people do. So in that context, I've been through it, and having someone who can coach you through, who's been down that path, the fast growth path. The reason I'll push you hard to do this though, is how far you go in life is in part, in career anyway, is how fast the slope of your growth is. And there will be times where things go badly and you get stuck and stagnate. And so you don't want to if you have a chance to go fast and have people invest in you, you unfortunately will not always have that. And so you really want to seize that opportunity while you can. But if you need to be comfortable with it, you ask, who can help me with that? Now, Pashi, who's here, and I think you know him from our chat, he's also saying, go watch some Dr. K, which does talk about Dr. K is Healthy Gamer GG. He's another Twitch streamer. Maybe I could introduce you and get you on. He normally deals with gaming issues, but he's an expert in imposter syndrome. He's a Harvard psychologist and amazing. I think he's also talked about imposter syndrome if you went through like his VODs or YouTube.
Yeah.
Dr. Alok Kanagia, I think you've seen when I went on his show. Imposter syndrome hits us all, by the way. He normally coaches executives. That's what he does, or analyzes executives. That's what he does in his sort of day job at Harvard and in Boston. In his other day job, he streams and tries to help gaming addicts, basically. But he's amazing. And I've gone on his stream 3 times, I think. And you know, so the point is these issues affect everyone. And I'm currently working to hire, the channel, Sudi, is healthygamer_GG. Anyway, I'm trying to hire an executive, and we've turned down all these well-qualified executives for all these different reasons. And I was just talking to our executive recruiter and saying, you know, I wonder if I had to interview here again, if I'd get in, which is a common feeling at Amazon because we're so hard on people to get a job. And it's not clear, you know, how much is luck and how much is time of day and whatever. Imposter syndrome hits us all. What I would say, though, is whatever you need to do with your feelings, take the best mentor you can get. And part of that is their level and experience. And don't worry, like, you don't even have a problem yet. You have a problem when one of these VPs says yes. There is a solid chance that despite what your boss wants, he'll recommend a few people to you and they will make excuses and beg off. So you don't have a problem yet. Go ask. And remember, you've been on my channel when we've talked about that book, Rejection Proof.
I know. I still haven't read that one.
I know.
I got to.
Well, I know, but you get the basic point, which is it's about building your self-confidence to take chances and be uncomfortable. And understand imposter syndrome hits women really hard. And you're very empathetic. What I see you doing is empathizing with these other people that would kill to have your opportunity and feeling bad for them. And
and there's another aspect too, Ethan, of this, which is, and this is regardless of who I would go with for a mentor, but I've previously felt like it needed to be this more organic thing, like not this. When you work with a team or for a boss, usually like you don't have a lot of say and you don't really know these people yet. And then you kind of like figure it out. And maybe you would have never picked to work with that person if you had a choice, but like you figure it out and you find ways to appreciate them regardless. So I guess I've had this, I think this misconception that a good mentorship requires this sort of like organic, like I get you and I want to invest in you and care about you sort of thing. Versus I like the way you put it, like think about one thing you're wanting in the mentorship and then, pursue a mentor for that specific thing versus it being like, we have to have this kind of like, we hit it off right away sort of.
Well, so
feeling.
Let's check history here. You're right in a way, but let's check history. Your husband saw me on Twitch, and yet you, having never met me, heard that I was looking for a couple people to coach, sent a video of yourself to someone you had never met, maybe seen stream a little. Like, what makes me more what not now, you have to rewind your brain a year. What allowed you to reach out to me, and yet you're struggling in this circumstance?
That's a great question. I don't know because talking with you and watching you and listening to you has definitely better equipped me to step into this management position. Just knowing how to kind of carry myself a little bit. Um, so it's a good question. Maybe the real reason is something else. Maybe I'm not doing it because I don't know who the right person is. And I'm worried that if I pick the wrong person, it will go south. It won't be beneficial. And if it's somebody within my organization, then what does that look like versus having a mentor outside of the organization? But he specifically wants me to find someone in the organization as well as, he totally supports having more than one mentor.
Yeah.
But he wants someone that I can talk to like bounce ideas off of so that it's not always me just getting all my directives from him. Because one of the things that he appreciates about me is that unlike a lot of other people in our department, I'm not afraid to challenge him or ask him questions. He's a very dominant personality. He's loud, he's tall, kind of like you. Um, and people just shy away from it. He's Indian, and I think that that's part of it too. Is that there's this little bit of a communication gap sometimes where people don't really understand. Are you mad? Are you not mad? Are you like, what are you trying to tell me? And when I don't know what he says, I just ask him, "Are you saying blah 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 blah?" I don't know. What about this? Like, I'm not afraid to ask questions. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just worried that like if I were to get a mentor and then it not be a good match, that could impact me negatively, which is like probably me magnifying like a potential thing and not actually the realistic.
It's projecting a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And but I can give you a way out of this. And the simplest thing to do, which actually will make your request easier to the VPs, is you reach out to one and say, my boss, so I'm looking for the right mentor for my growth, which I think involves A, B, and C. You can tell them what you think you need. And my boss suggested, my boss, Fred, or whatever, VJ, you say is Indian, suggested that you would be great. Could we meet a couple times and see if it's a fit? And then if it's a fit, we can both agree to go further. Mm-hmm. You can set it up with a test. It's very respectful of their time. And you can totally call the question. You can have a couple meetings with them. And then at the end of the meeting, you can say, Fred, Alice, whatever. So, Alice, we've met a couple times. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of our discussions. How do you feel about continuing our relationship? Would you be interested? Conversely, you can also say, Alice, honestly, I've really enjoyed talking to you, but I'm not sure we're the most natural fit because of A or B. What do you think?
Yeah.
And whatever they say, they're right. And what I mean by that is, once they opt in or opt out, you're good. But if they opt in, or if you, the great thing about asking, this is the power of asking. If you ask them and they opt in, they're hooked and committed. Because if they had a chance to say no, see, if they say, yeah, I think we're a good fit, I can really help you, mm-hmm. then they're invested. Mm-hmm. And so questions are super powerful. And meanwhile, it gives you a chance to say, hey, I don't think we're the best fit, or whatever you would say. I'm not sure, after a couple of conversations, I'm not sure that we're the right match to really work on my problem of FUBAR. Would you be okay if I continue to look for the right person for that? And that's very mature, it's very respectful, and it lets you ease out. And because you set it up as a couple meetings, you have that exit point. But you also have that commitment point where you can set the hook. So that's a tool you can use.
I like that. Because then I'm not blindly committing or asking them to blindly commit.
Correct. Yeah, it's dating before marriage, right? There is nothing wrong. This goes to I think you read the book Decisive. This is the mm-hmm. idea of ooching, right? How can you test it? And I think, by the way, while a lot of this is emotional for you, thinking about the decisive wrap process would be
Yeah.
phenomenally powerful, right? How do you widen your options? How do you attain distance? And this is a way of kind of attaining distance and testing, right? Reality test your assumptions, attain distance,
Yeah.
and then prepare to be right or prepare to be wrong. This includes a way to prepare to be right or wrong. And any reasonable VP is going to be impressed by that level of thoughtful approach
Yeah.
because, again, the normal mentorship approach most of us get, and again, we have lots of managers here. We have 40 Pink Dragons and plus David and whatever. The normal mentorship approach is, will you be my mentor? Or it's even more self-serving. I get requests that literally read, I would like to get to the next level. Will you help me? Or I blah, blah, blah. Will you help me do that? Like they're very one-sided.
Yeah.
And I get it, but you can make a two-sided request. You can make a request that says, I understand mentorship is a big time investment. My boss recommended recommended you for these things. I would really like to learn from you. And perhaps by getting to know you, I can also share some about what our team does. And so you give them a
Yeah.
little carrot of like, and by the way, I have to say, okay, I have a couple questions and they're invasive.
Perfect.
You said that your VP is of Indian descent. Was he born in the U.S. or born? No. Okay.
No, he was born in India. He tried to come to America, couldn't get in, went to Australia and did his studies there, and then moved to America.
Okay. So chat's going to back me up on this. At least the people who've been in industry for a while. The idea that as a young American female, you have an Indian-born male VP trying to facilitate your career,
Yeah.
extremely rare. And I'm simply talking about this is historic and cultural.
Yeah.
And there are many many people who are different than that stereotype or that cultural pattern, but you are integrating, like run with it, seize the moment, because
Dude.
you will have a shitty boss soon enough and have to deal. It will happen.
So he told me a few weeks, like maybe a month ago, we have biweekly one-to-ones, and he said, Kristen, actually he calls me Christine. That's how he pronounces my name. And all my other managers laugh because they think it's funny. So sometimes they call me Christine just for fun. I'm like, he's not really saying Christine. That's just how he says my name. Anyway, he said, I don't do this for everyone, but I want to help you get where you want to go. So I want you to be thinking about where you want to be at 3 years, 5 years down the road. And I'm here to help make that happen.
Yeah.
And he's been really very direct with me. And honestly, like, he knows I'm young. He knows I plan on having more kids. He knows that I've had some extra anxiety that I've dealt with in the past year. And yet he continues to fully support me and believe in me. So I do feel insanely lucky.
And I just say, you'll have the long career people here. T Weirdo could testify to this. I think 40 Pink could. I think Plus David certainly could. Maybe some other people I don't know as well. I don't know their whole life history. I don't see Sean 123 here. Careers move in fits and starts. There's a time when everything's going your way and you have to seize all the territory you can, because there will be a time where shit doesn't go right.
Yeah.
And I know T Weirdo has lived through this. I know for sure that Plus David has. My opinion is 40 Pink Dragons has. Hey, Danana, welcome in. You're coming in at the end, but welcome anyway. There will be times where nothing goes right. And you get the bad boss, and then your company's economics tank, and you get let go, but your bad boss wouldn't give you a recommendation to clean toilets. Like, I have a very successful career, and yet you've heard me talk about getting laid off twice.
Right.
shit will go south for you soon enough. So I would encourage you. I get that you feel uncomfortable. Fight really hard to find ways to be comfortable, and we'll wrap up. But if you don't get to where you feel comfortable, or if you need coaching with this, the reason I said I really wanted to get to this finding a mentor, do not wait till the next time you come on the show. I'm with your boss here. I want you to find a great mentor. And that mentor, by the way, is an insurance policy. Your boss leaves, gets transferred, there's a reorganization.
Yeah.
That mentor is another advocate for you inside the company who knows you. And what your boss is doing, by the way, is very interesting. He's acting as what's called a sponsor. So as opposed to just being a mentor advises. A mentor gives advice. That's easy. I advise you, but I'm not invested in you. A sponsor is the golden ticket, as somebody said earlier, as Dr. Miller said earlier. A sponsor tries to put you forward for opportunities. And that's just amazing. And to have someone who's worked so hard, this gentleman that you're talking about, he's seen pain you and I'll hopefully never know, right? Fighting. India is an amazing country I've been to, full of incredibly smart people, many of whom fight very hard to get out to a place where they have more opportunity. One of my first employees from India, a guy named Raj, he said, well, I wanted to come to America because even your poor people are fat. He was literally from a village where people didn't have enough food. And so he wanted out that bad. His honest reason was like, well, even your poor people are fat. It's a miraculous country. Your guy fought so hard to get here that he went via Australia, which is a fine country. And yet he still wanted to get here. And the last thing I'll do, I'm going to load you up with a little guilt just to make it fun. We got to go the full circle.
Okay.
Just a tiny bit. Just
Go ahead.
Just a seasoning of guilt.
It will demolish me with my high empathy, right?
Oh, well, that's why we're going to go very gently.
No. Go for it. I'm good.
One of the reasons you need to try to get past your, I would ask that you try to get past your fears on this, even if I need to help you more or someone else can help you more, is your boss is really trying to invest in you and you want to honor that. And so if that means you need to be a little uncomfortable or feel like maybe you're, in your words, weaseling your way in where others would love to be, I would say this guy is trying really hard and you want to honor that if you can. And that's just the slight taste of the guilt part is not accepting the generous sponsorship.
Yeah.
Is a little bit, that wouldn't be the most polite thing I think you could do. And so I would really encourage you to honor that.
Then this is what I'm going to do.
Okay, tell us.
I hate that I'm doing this to myself. I'm just putting the pressure on. Next time we stream, whenever that is,
yep,
I'll have at least made the ask of at least one person.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll have met with them or, I don't know what, it depends on how long it is till we talk again, but
I'd say that's a fairly low bar.
But if we meet in like 4 weeks, I don't know that I can get a response in less than 4 weeks. He says it's a low bar. Come on, chat.
Here,
chat's
going to back me. No, they're going to go with me on this. Here's why. I have to ask as a leader, which you would ask your team, what's preventing you from, we all talk about eat that frog. This is very important. What's preventing you from doing this, making the first ask tomorrow?
Oh, I would say the one thing preventing me is the fact that I'm behind in all my work every day, basically right now. But I guess it's just me not prioritizing myself over the work that's going to be there every day when I wake up anyway.
The work will always be there.
Okay.
And so the reason I said it's a low bar is it's an email. It's a phone call. It's a chat message. It's whatever method. I'd say email, but whatever. It's an email to make the ask.
And all right. So what's the challenge then? What am I committing to?
So
chat here?
let's assume it's at least 4 weeks from now. So it's at
Okay.
least 4th of July or later. So we'll give you a month.
Okay, so it'll be around my birthday, July
Okay.
6th.
July
My
6th.
birthday.
Okay.
Yep.
Uh, then I think the minimum is to have, we'll give you an out. It's a small out. I think you should have had your first meeting with your first prospective mentor. If you
Okay.
email 3 people that your boss has recommended in order, not all at once, I will give you an out that if you email 3 people and they all turn you down, then that would be a fair reason. But otherwise, to have contacted one person and get a yes or no and schedule a time, or get a no and contact the next and contact the next. And so my expectation is that you will have had at least one meeting with a potential mentor that you've set up on this idea of, hey, can we meet a couple times and see if we're a good match for each other? That would be, and chat, you can score that if that's too high or too low.
Real-time update via Discord.
Uh,
Sure, I'll give you guys real-time updates. And you know what? Someone said to write the email tonight, but the problem is it's 11:48
yeah,
at night.
she's East
Not my
Coast.
best time to write emails.
And not a good time generally, by the way. When you're tired, that's why it's always do the important things in the morning.
Yeah.
But don't procrastinate on this one. It's such an opportunity. And I do think it's okay to prioritize yourself.
Yeah, I don't do that well. That also goes back
That's
to
the
the
empathy.
Enneagram too.
Yeah.
So Enneagram 2, man, they super great at being intuitive to other people's needs. Terrible at recognizing your own and prioritizing yourself.
Well, 40 Pink Dragons is here for you. I don't know where she is on Enneagram, but she shares that trait, and so she can be your conscience when I'm not. Because, same a supportive person thinks about others first and they think about themselves last. So look, it's late there. We've had a great chat. We've ended on a super compelling thing, and you can do this. I see you, like, you visibly look uncomfortable. And
No, I'm totally fine. I know the one person that I'll email first. The reason I've hesitated on her is because when somebody else was leaving the company, they had a really bad interaction with her that kind of made me kind of question, I guess, some intent. And so, but that's on one experience with one person who was leaving the company. So probably not a real good
and not everybody's
gauge.
an angel. Okay, not every, people in leadership. A lot of them
Oh,
have
yeah.
fangs.
You got to read that book, Ethan.
The 9 Lies.
Dude,
It's right
that
here.
last chapter
It's on my shelf behind me. The chair's in the way. It's right there, and I'm probably going to do shows going through the 9 Lies. So I thank you. Kristen sent me this book, said I should read it. Hang on, chat.
those long arms. He's got that reach.
We'll end on this. What I'm probably going to do is a series of shows, not all at once, where I read a lie and we have a show about each lie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be a lot of fun. So, and yeah, the thing is, people in chat are saying, first, they're encouraging you, go get it. But second, they're right. We're probably going to have a celebration next time.
Oh, brother.
No, you're going to have found a person and be getting something out of it. And you'll be successful. You'll have done it. Remember, the more you eat frogs, the easier it gets. So
True.
Force yourself through this, and you'll build the muscle of I can do uncomfortable things.
Yeah. So I need to read Rejection Proof and read Eat That Frog, and then I need to actually do it. But I need to start doing it now. And also, I don't even remember you recommending this book, but for Christmas, my husband bought me Peopleware or something like that. That he said he saw you recommend before. For
DeMarco and
like
Lister.
like an older book that is all about, working in software with people software.
Peopleware is so perfect for you because you care so much about human environment.
That print is real small, and it doesn't look like it's an easy read for me.
I wouldn't. Eat That Frog is good, though, for this. Anyway, there's lots of books, but you read a lot. All right, Kristen, I'm super excited for you. Thank you for coming on and for staying up late.
Yeah. Thanks.
And
It was fun.
we
Nice
got through
chat.
all your topics. Hey, if things drag out before I schedule you again, feel free to poke me.
Okay.
And chat, you need to remind me if we start getting into July and you don't see the Kristen returns on the schedule, keep me honest.
Yep. I will. I am excited to come back with good news of finding a mentor.
You can do this. And more than that, you can invest in yourself and prioritize your own opportunity and honor your boss. You get a whole lot out of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Someone in chat said I should leverage my empathy to,
To honor him. That's a great
yeah,
point. Be
yeah.
empathetic with the risk he's taking.
This is why I love doing this. And I love with this group in this chat because no one else is going to talk to me like this, not at work. And none of my friends really geek out or like care about this stuff. So it's pretty fun to have this channel.
That's our community here. All right.
Yeah. All
You have
right.
a
Thanks,
good night.
guys.
Thank you. Good
Thanks. See
night.
ya. Cheers.
Yeah, totally. All right. So she killed it tonight. That was a great show. So many topics, real stuff, the process of coaching someone about asking questions that help them see themselves. We're going to call it a night. I will be back on Tuesday of next week at my usual time of 6 p.m. Pacific. We've done a bunch of different shows on other stuff. Awesome, who's here, is going to help me do a show on my personal weakness as well as somewhat his, perfectionism. And when is good enough, and how the hell can I stop working on stuff and be okay with good enough? It's a plague because being really into quality matters, but being a perfectionist is a poison because you're never damn happy and you never feel done. And that's me. And so I torture myself, and that's silly. So with that, that's our show next week at 6. And then we'll get into, hey, Real Jessica. Then we will get in to the 9 Lives, and we'll also start watching the rest of Hannah sometime. So we got a lot of shows to do, and we'll get Kristen back. God, I hope she is successful. She's so, can you imagine having a boss that's supportive? That's amazing. That's amazing to have a boss that's supportive. She's really doing well to be in that situation. Yeah, super rare, dream boss. And so, yeah, the real Jessica can't even imagine it. Perfect and incomplete is the enemy of good and launched. I am so with awesome Dave on that one, plus David. So with that, I'm going to let you all go. It's been a good show, but it's been 2 hours. And so I'm going to say cheers, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you for being for the coaching shows. I know the people who stay through the coaching are the diehards that really want to grow and be better. And so this is going to make you super successful in your careers, and you get to learn from somebody else doing all the sharing.